Good morning, park managers, and welcome back. Today we are making a crater basin enclosure. Now the way I've got the idea is that the crater basin is going to be somewhat of a different material to what is going on around it. With being a tropical map, all I'm going to be doing is adding the tropical rocks and tropical trees to the outside, and within the basin we're going to go for a completely different sort of like ecosystem using the leafy greens as our main food source. So I'm not going to be putting too many plants into this area, and then different rocks to make it so that it looks like what got left behind from the original impact, which could have been, let's say, a few hundred years ago, because we're making it so it's not like got the weird hills on either side. It's literally just a hole in the ground, so obviously the earth has had time to sort of like shift and move about, but there's still this basin in the middle. And then in the center we're going to have the drinking hole. That's going to be the deepest part of the basin, and that's where the water is for them to drink, etc. And then as well, we need to make it so it does look a little bit different to what's going on around it, because the soil could, let's just say, have a different pH, and it just adds a little bit of storytelling to your enclosures. Now I really do like making these crater enclosures. I find them very interesting, especially with like the look and the things you can do with it. One of my favorite things, as you can see right now, that I'm doing is to like literally use different rocks on the outside than what's inside the basin. Just gives it that like, it just gives it something different. So when you're watching a dinosaur in a tropical bit and then all of a sudden it's walking out into this completely different environment, it's almost like there's two ecosystems within one enclosure. And again, it just adds that storytelling. It looks cool. You can make some very interesting like screenshots from it as well. And I stopped for a second because we got a visitor from our last build from last week pop into the enclosure. But yeah, I'll go around the outside just on the edge with a rock brush to make sure it definitely stands out that this is the basin crater, and it's sort of the breakup barrier between what's inside the crater and what is outside the crater. Now when I put down the sandy rocks, I added a little sandy brush to it, like there's been a bit of erosion, it's broken down a bit into the ground, and then just added a few more rocks around where the brush had like separated a bit further from the actual original rocker place. And for a bit of fun, I just added this zip line because I thought it'd be kind of cool. Imagine going a zip line over a basin. It'd just be a really interesting sort of vibe to it. Now in this enclosure we added Camarasaurus, Dryosaurus and Critonosaurus. Just an interesting mix. We had a really large, then some small runners, and then just one little armoured fella just knocking about the enclosure. And it's kind of cool to watch, like the Camarasaurus, Critonosaurus tend to stick within the basin itself, and the Dryosaurus sort of nip in for a bit of food, a bit of water, and they zoom off into the shrubbery on the outside. So sometimes it just looks like there's no Dryosaurus in this closure, and then all of a sudden they all appear out of nowhere. Adds like for a very interesting look. And I love when you're making herbivore enclosures, a good mix of herbivores of like different sizes. It's just a bit like, it's a bit like when you're setting up a fish tank in a sense. You have your big fish, you have your middle fish, and you have your ground eaters. It just adds variety to that enclosure. And this, I get a really cool screenshot from this. Like this Critosaurus is having a little bit of a drink, and the Camarasaurus is like, hey, I'm gonna have a drink too. And I don't know why, I never realized how big the Camarasaurus's head is till I saw it next to the Critosaurus. Like, it's absolutely huge. I was like, what? Like, this is quite, in my eyes, a small sauropod compared to what other creatures we have in the game. But still, it's one of my favourite sauropods to have. Like, they have a really cool, like, skin. And as well, it's one of my favourite ones back in the old Jurassic Park Operation Genesis, which I used to love playing a fair bit. But yeah, that brings us towards the end of our video and this really cool enclosure. Is this something that you would make and add into your zoos? Do you like this crater kind of build? And yeah, thank you for watching, and as always, till next time, I'll see you later.